Social media is not real life. It is a highlight reel. Do you know this feeling when you are consuming so much content on social media to make sure that you don't have a single thought? My teenage brain was slightly excited that I was suddenly writing with these girls who had like millions of followers, and they end up blocking me everywhere. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I hope that everyone is doing well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I wanted to talk about how social media is ruining your life. That sounds like a really strong statement to make, but it might actually not be so far from the truth. And so let's talk about that today. So I've been on social media for a minute. I created my first YouTube account where I actually started uploading videos 9 years ago now, which is crazy. And since then, it's just been a journey of being on social media, using social media, and also working a lot in the field of social media. So a lot of the jobs that I've had were either me structuring or creating content for social media for other people, or organizing trips and accommodation for influencers. And I've also just had a lot of people around me who have been in this field or who are doing social media as their job. And I used to always say that I have a love-hate relationship with social media, but I think at this point it's more hate than love, because there are just so many elements to it that I find so toxic and unhealthy, especially nowadays. And that doesn't mean there are no positive parts to it. There are so many, and we can go into that at another point. But today I wanted to focus on the not so great parts of social media, because I think there are definitely enough of those to talk about. So my first issue with social media is that it is simply too much. It's overstimulation, because at this point, if we choose to, there is enough information and enough content online to stay occupied and distracted and entertained 24/7, 7 days a week. And yes, great that we have access to so much knowledge and so much information. That's a different conversation. But I think in this, the mind also starts getting used to whenever there is any moment of silence or boredom or discomfort or sadness, we start thinking that that's something that immediately has to be numbed or entertained or distracted. And that's really toxic, because I think in that we get entirely disconnected from ourselves and how we feel. Because now on social media, it's like, you're bored, here are endless amounts of videos that you can watch that can entertain you. And the kicker is they're also all about a minute long on TikTok and whatever now everyone's using. So you really don't know when to stop. Or let's say you are out on a walk and you don't like the silence. Here are endless amounts of podcasts that you can listen to that can entertain you, and they're all good and all high quality. Or let's say you're feeling lost or sad. Here are endless amounts of videos that can make you feel like you're doing something with your life or you're improving, when it's actually just an illusion. Like, there's literally no end to how much content we can consume on social media, because there's just so much out there. And so we need to be the people who decide where we draw the line in terms of how much we consume, because social media is no longer going to do that for you. I think a big part of living a healthy and fulfilled life is being connected to yourself. And for me, that has never come from being distracted or entertained on social media, but rather from the exact opposite, from moments of silence or boredom or discomfort. So for example, I find this in being in nature to hear my intuition better, meditating to get to know my thoughts better, improving my emotional well-being through sitting with moments of pain and sadness and not just distracting myself so that I can understand what that is, or feeling bored at times to see all of the ideas and creativity that I can come up with in that space. And that is impossible if I am continuously distracted and occupied with content on social media. I saw a video on TikTok, I think, recently from a guy who said, do you know this feeling when you are consuming so much content on social media to make sure that you don't have a single thought? And I felt that because I've been there. There are many times where I've done that. For me, whenever I've been in this mode where I've just been consuming content on social media, too much of it, I actually start feeling like I can't breathe anymore in a way, metaphorically. Like it almost feels suffocating because it feels like I can't hear myself anymore. I can't hear my intuition. I can't hear what I want to do with my life. I can't hear what I'm feeling. Like it feels like you are completely disconnected from yourself and numb in a way. And I get it, because sometimes feeling numb is easier than dealing with life or with our thoughts. But in that, there are also so many opportunities for growth and creativity and ideas and movement forward that get completely lost because we are disconnected from ourselves. Social media is not real life. It is a highlight reel. And I think we all kind of know that at this point, but somehow I think sometimes the mind seems to forget that, and we start to think again that what people are sharing on social media is an accurate representation of real life when that is not the case. And so I think it's really important to know and to remember while being on social media that you are getting a glimpse into someone's life. It is not real life. And yes, there are many more people who are being much more authentic and real on here. Very different to when I started being on social media. Nobody showed anything that was not perfect back then. And so that has definitely improved, but even in those cases, people are still choosing what they show you and what they don't show you, and not knowing or feeling that is really unhealthy, because we are asking ourselves to live up to standards that are not even actually real. Like even with this podcast and what you are seeing right now, it's not really real in a way. It's not real life, because yes, I try my best to be authentic on here, and it's the whole reason why I do it, but I'm still choosing what I'm showing you, because right now we have lighting here, I have my camera, I have my notes in front of me because I've thought about what I'm going to say beforehand. Like this is a curated and picked out version of myself that I choose to show online. It is not an accurate representation of my life or me 24/7. And that's really important, because we go on social media and we see a snapshot of someone's life or who they are, and we compare that to our lives 24/7, when that's not even how that person's life looks like 24/7. You know, that doesn't mean this is not real or it's not authentic, because this is also me right now. This is what I authentically want to share, and I'm not being anyone I don't want to be, but I'm still choosing what I show you and what I don't show you. And there are many, many things that I choose not to show. And that is so important to remember, because on social media, it is so easy to fall into comparisons and to compare ourselves and our lives to the people around us in real life. I think is somewhat normal and healthy, because it's how we evolve and how we check in with ourselves. But now suddenly we have this whole artificial world that we are asking ourselves to live up to those standards, feeling shit about ourselves when we don't live up to those standards, when those are not even real. Like social media is not real life. Social media is a glimpse into someone's life. It is a highlight reel. And in some cases, in the bad cases, it's even entirely fake. And so we sit there and we compare our bodies and how they look in the evening after a full meal to the person who just posted a photo in the morning with perfect angle and perfect lighting. Or we see someone and the photos they post about their life, and we feel shit about ourselves when we've never even met that person, we've never talked to them, we don't know what's going on in their life. Or we see someone, they posted a photo where they look nice or they're smiling, and we think, oh, that person must be happy, when we don't even know what's going on behind the scenes. It's a snapshot of a moment. And with this, I'm not saying that everything on social media is fake. That is not true, nor is it the answer to our problems. If that were the case, I would definitely have left social media a long time ago. But it's definitely not real life, because how can it be? How can something as simple as technology and a screen and what people choose to show you reflect something as complex as real life and human beings and all aspects and facets of us and how we really are? Like, it's really impossible. And that's good, I think, in a way. They are two different worlds. Social media and real life are two different worlds. In my eyes, that's a good thing. And so I think it's important to not get those two mixed up, because they are very, very different worlds. I think it's really important to be aware of what we consume on social media and how that makes us feel, because it's pretty logical when it comes to food. We know that it's important to look at what we put into our bodies and how that makes us feel. And so the same goes for the mind. It's important to be aware of how we feed our minds, what we consume, and how that makes us feel. There is a lot of content on social media that is very toxic and very unhealthy. There's no denying that. But I think it's also toxic in a way to continuously sit there and say, this person on social media makes me feel shit about myself. This person on social media makes me feel shit about my life. Because yes, I get it. It's probably true. But then also, why don't we just stop watching it? Because it's pretty logical when we go into a store to buy food. We know there is food that is unhealthy and there is food that is healthy. And so now imagine we would go into the store and only buy ice cream and ice cream and ice cream for the entire week and nothing else. And then we walk out and we say, well, not my responsibility because someone put all of that ice cream there. It doesn't really make sense. And so the same goes for social media. You have content that will make you feel good and you have content that will make you feel bad. And it's really up to us what we choose to consume and what we choose to take in. At the same time, it's also very individual, because not everyone feels the same way about the same kind of content. So let's say there is one person who, if they watch, I don't know, content from fitness influencers who go to the gym, they might feel not good about themselves for whatever reason. And for them, that classifies as toxic content that doesn't make them feel good. Meanwhile, for another person, that might be the healthiest content ever because it's motivating them to, I don't know, reach new levels with their strength and with their body and go to the gym and get more into health because maybe they love that. And so different content makes different people feel good or feel bad about themselves. And I'm sure there is some content that is just generally toxic, but even in those cases, we need to be the ones who decide what we consume and how that makes us feel. And we also need to take responsibility for that, because it's really impossible to ask strangers on the internet to cater to how we feel at all times and to put that as their responsibility when it's really our responsibility. I have people on social media where I know if I watch their content, I will not feel good about myself in some way, either based on past thoughts or current thoughts or whatever. I will just feel shit about myself in some way, and I know that. And now I can sit there and say, why are people on social media posting content that makes other people not feel good? I can do that. I'll probably find valid points, or I can simply no longer watch it. It's actually really as simple as that, because it is my responsibility what I consume and how that makes me feel. It's the only thing that I really have control over. And the only thing where I think it goes into a different conversation is when we talk about younger kids being online, because I think they don't always know how to draw the line or where to draw the line. They don't have the capacity to do so, because I remember when I was younger, there was a lot of content that I watched that I think really, really damaged my brain in some way. And I don't think I always knew or understood where to draw the line or why to not watch that or how to not watch that. And so I think that's a different conversation. And there, I really think there should be more awareness and education and control. So, to end this podcast today, I wanted to share a story with you. We're going to do a little story time. And I wasn't sure if I should share the story at first because I didn't want to generalize things with this. But at the same time, now thinking about it more, I think this could be very valuable to share if we see it from a more neutral perspective. And so let's get into the story. So this happened about 6-7 years ago. I'm not really sure, something like that. And at this point, I was already working in the field of social media. So my job was for a hotel company. It was a very high-end, nice hotel. And I was in charge for the influencer collaborations. That's what we called them back then, meaning we would get in touch with influencers or influencers would get in touch with us, meaning people who are on social media. And if we would set up a collaboration, it would mean that that person gets to stay at our hotel and facility for free. And in return, they would have to post something on their social media to market us and the hotel. So again, this was like 6-7 years ago, but at this point I had a really fucked up relationship to food and to exercise and to my body for a couple of different reasons. But I think one part of it was also all of this content that I was watching on social media, because I don't want to say back then it was more toxic, because that's not true, but it was definitely more toxic in that regard because there was no awareness of how toxic it actually was. It was much easier to fall into these ideas. Well, I don't know if it was easier, but anyways, it happened. And so I went down this really dark hole that also took me a long time to get out of again. It took a long time to get those ideas out of my head again because it was just so unhealthy and not fun. And so anyways, one day I was going through all of the messages for the Instagram collaborations, and I see that these girls had messaged asking if they can stay at our hotel, and in return they would post on their social media. The thing is, back then I was already following these girls for a really long time. I knew who they were because they basically had the body that everyone wanted, and so they were super popular, super successful, and my teenage brain was slightly excited that I was suddenly writing with these girls who had like millions of followers, and I'd known them for a really long time, and their content just looked so nice. Like, they were smiling in all of the photos, they looked so beautiful, they were always in great, amazing places, that I immediately thought, oh, I can trust them. But I was wrong with that one, and we will get to that in a second. And so obviously we set up the collaboration. They were huge back then. I mean, millions of followers is a lot now, but back then it was like more than it is now. And so it was very clear, okay, we're going to confirm the collaboration. And so we set up dates. They ended up staying at our place. And by the end of the stay, I messaged them and I asked them, hey, how's it going with the photos that they were supposed to post, because they hadn't posted anything at this point, and I was confused. And so they said, oh, we're so sorry, we're just having some problems with the editing, we just need a few more days, but we're definitely going to post them as soon as we can, because normally people would post the photos while they were actually at our place. And so I just found it a little bit odd that the stay was almost entirely over and they had not posted anything. Me not thinking anything of it, I was like, yeah, sure, no problem at all, just post them whenever you can. And then the evening before their checkout, they messaged me again and they were like, oh my God, we're so sorry, our next hotel has been cancelled, they can't take us in, can we please stay at your place a couple of days longer? And I was like, okay, sure, that's no problem. I can make that happen. But in return, we would also need something to balance out the additional nights that you are staying. And so at this point, I also had another photographer at the same hotel. We were doing a collaboration with him, and he messaged me saying he needs some models to pose in the pool or do some photos because he has to take photos for the property. And he was asking me if I know anyone. And I was like, oh, perfect. perfect. We have these girls staying literally next door and we still need to balance something out with them. So I asked them, hey, do you have like 30 minutes time to take some photos with this photographer, and in return it would balance out the additional nights that we are giving you at our hotel. First, they didn't really seem amused about it, but eventually they said yes, they want to do it, but they only have 30 minutes time, not more than that. And also, I should let the photographer know that they don't want to show their faces in the photos, so it can only be close-up shots. And I was like, okay, that's weird. I don't really understand, but I'm going to respect that because it's your guys' choice. And so I told the photographer, hey, these girls don't want their faces to be shown in the photos, so only take close-up shots. And they ended up doing that shoot. And so by the end of everything, they actually end up checking out, and they had gotten a lot of things at this point because we also knew what they were giving us in return. And so we tried our best to create really great service. We were always available. They had staff around them. They had the nicest room. We gave them an additional room because they wanted a friend to stay. They had food inclusive. Like, we really also tried our best to make it a really great stay for them. And then they check out and they haven't posted anything at this point. I'm thinking they're still going to post the photos, and they end up blocking me everywhere and never posting any photos of our property. So that was the first point where I was confused, to say the least. And then a couple of days later, I get the photos from the photographer. And at this point, it's only photos of random girls because nobody knows who those girls are other than the photographer and me, because I set up the collaboration. And so I get the photos and I almost fell off my fucking chair. I'm not even kidding. I almost fell off my chair because I knew the image that these girls had been presenting online for so long, because it was exactly the content that I was consuming. And I very quickly saw that whatever was happening on those photos from the photographer was nothing close to the image they were presenting online. And I think almost everyone on social media, me included, takes photos with the best lighting or the best angle or whatever, and it might not be how we always look like 24/7 when someone randomly takes a photo of us. And so if that would have been the difference, it would have been very logical to me. I wouldn't have cared. But the difference was so huge. I'm telling you, no amount of lighting or angle or anything can make that big of a difference. It is literally impossible. And so to this day, I still think they must have been photoshopping and curating these images entirely to present this image of what they knew people wanted to see. Meanwhile, that was really not even close to what was going on in reality. And they looked beautiful, really beautiful in every way, especially now looking back. I think they looked beautiful, but in no way anything close to the image they were presenting online. And I think that they knew people wanted to see. And so I realized in that moment, when we go out into the real world, we know that there are people who have good intentions and there are people who have bad intentions. It's just very logical. We know that, and we know to look at things more. We don't just trust people randomly, strangers, just because they're smiling at us. Like, we know that there are people out there who are also not such great people. But I think we often go about this in a very naive way. We see someone post something on social media, it looks nice, it looks friendly, the person is smiling, they're in beautiful places, looks like they have their life together, looks like they're a good person, and we immediately think, well, that must be true. So let me continue watching that person's stuff. Let me buy whatever they're promoting. Let me support them in some way. But we never really question what's actually going on behind the scenes. And that's something I also really learned from working in this field of social media. It's like, your attention is what people make money off. Your attention, your time, you consuming someone's content, it's how they make money. So that's what people are trying to hook, or then they are trying to sell you a product or promote something. That's how they make their money. And we're talking about a lot of money that can be involved in this. And so it's very logical that there will be people on social media who will make you feel shit about yourself, shit about your life, that you need to change, that you're not good enough, that there's something wrong with you, that you need to buy this or do that, because you feeling horrible about yourself will ensure that you take choices such as consuming that person's content more, thinking you need to be more like this, or buying whatever that person is promoting. And that's how those people make money. It's actually very logical, but I think an important reality check that we sometimes need to have. And again, with this, I'm not trying to say that everything on social media is fake. That's not true, but it's kind of similar. Like when we go out into the real world, you have people who are amazing, you have people who are not really so amazing and don't do great things. And so with the amount of people that are on social media nowadays, the same applies there. And some of those people also have huge followings. I have a celebrity, someone on social media, whatever, who I really love. I think she's amazing. She's doing great things. I really like her. I've been watching her for years, and she came out with her own makeup brand. And so I was like, that's cool. Let me just buy a lot of it. And I bought a lot of it and I loved it. And I thought, I want to support this. I think this is really cool. But it was about questioning things more. It's not about never doing that. It's just question things. When someone makes you feel something online, what's really going on? Why is that person doing that? Why are they trying to sell you that product? What's really going on behind the scenes, and not just believing something just because we are told to believe that. Anyways, that is all I wanted to share for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a beautiful morning, evening, night, wherever you are. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you in my next episode.